My neighbor, residing across from me, suddenly sent a message in the homeowners group. I have an announcement to make. My wife is pregnant. To ensure her peace of mind during this delicate time, I have formulated a code of conduct for residents of this building. He then proceeded to enumerate 10 prohibitions. Renovations are forbidden, pet dogs are not allowed, cooking within the confines of one's home is prohibited, elevator usage in the evening is banned, and should my wife be present, the use of mobile phones is strictly forbidden. Point 1. My wife may need to rest at any moment, therefore, residents of this building are prohibited from making any noise, day or night. 2. During my wife's pregnancy, all forms of renovation are strictly forbidden within this building. Point 3. My wife has an aversion to dogs, thus, pet ownership is not permitted. Those who currently have dogs must make arrangements to remove them within 3 days. 4. In consideration of radiation concerns, should my wife be encountered in the elevator, no one is allowed to use their mobile phones. Point 9. My wife is intolerant of cooking odors, therefore, residents on the 16th floor are prohibited from cooking within their homes. 10. The sound of the elevator doors opening is loud, hence, after 9 p.m., residents on the 16th floor are forbidden from using the elevator. I couldn't help but grimace. Is my neighbor's wife carrying a dragon? What audacity to impose such peculiar demands upon others, especially considering there are only 2 households on each floor. The last 2 stipulations are clearly directed at me. He continued to issue commands. From this day forth, all residents of this building must conscientiously adhere to this code of conduct. Now, I request the group administrator to tag everyone. Strangely, no one in the group dared to criticize him. While they managed to restrain themselves, I could not. I immediately retorted, "What business is it of ours that your wife is pregnant? Is this child the result of a crowdfunding campaign among all the men in the building?" The neighbor across the hall was incensed. "How dare you speak like that? Are you looking for trouble? I tell you, my wife's pregnancy is of utmost importance. If anyone dares to interfere, I will not let it slide. Which household do you belong to? Why is there no note? Group leader, is this person from our building? If not, kick him out." Such bravado was amusing. Unfortunately, I had encountered many like him, those who reveled in empty bravado. I replied, "It matters not to me which household I belong to. The child in your wife's womb is none of anyone else's concern, and you have no right to meddle in others' affairs." The neighbor unleashed a torrent of curses upon my ancestors. Then, he attempted to add me as a friend, but I ignored him. The aunt who had added me to the group sent me a private message. "Xiao Zhou, please do not provoke the family in 1601. Everyone in the building knows that those who offend them can forget about living in peace. The previous residents of 1602 moved out precisely because they could not endure them." No wonder the others in the group remained silent. They were clearly afraid of attracting trouble. However, knowing this only piqued my interest. While I may not excel in many areas, I am certainly well versed in dealing with rogues. In the year 1601, there was still a clamoring in the group, incessantly spewing forth nothing but foul language. I had long since developed an immunity to such words. After all, time was on my side, and I had no desire to engage in a war of words. With a simple flick of my finger, I turned off my phone and surrendered to slumber. The following day, I ventured out to indulge in copious amounts of liquor with friends. Upon my return, as I stepped out of the elevator, I was greeted by the alarming sight of a colossal jar of pickled vegetables at my doorstep. It was the peak of August and September, the air thick and humid, permeated by an unbearable stench reminiscent of putrid fish, or perhaps stagnant water, festering with decay. The odor was utterly repugnant, enough to induce nausea. It was unnecessary to speculate this was undoubtedly the handiwork of my neighbor across the hall. I approached the door of my neighbor with purpose. A burly, bald man with a face full of disdain emerged, his expression rife with impatience. "Who are you? What do you want?" he inquired. I gestured towards the pickled vegetable jar. "This belongs to you, doesn't it? It's rather inappropriate to leave it outside." He scrutinized me from head to toe before lifting his chin defiantly. "What makes it inappropriate?" "The stench is overwhelmingly pungent. Who could possibly endure it? If you can't stand it, then bear with it. My wife is pregnant and has a craving for sour foods. I can't very well let her suffer in our home, can I?" So, he was aware of the unpleasantness of the situation. "If you must leave it outside, at least place it in front of your own door. It's nearly impossible to open mine with this monstrosity here. Are you blind? Can't you see that my side is already filled to the brim? Your side is empty. Besides, this is a communal area, first come, first served. If you have a grievance, Blame yourself for not claiming the space first. His brazen and shameless demeanor would have driven a lesser person to the brink of apoplexy. Before I could utter another word, the bald man began to turn the tables. How dare you come looking for me? It's already 10 o'clock. Did I not make it clear yesterday that the elevator is off limits after 9? It disturbs my wife's rest. If you can't remember, should I print out those words and paste them on your door? Goodness, it was all too familiar. He bore an uncanny resemblance to my middle school principal reprimanding a student. With such a person, it was evident that reason held no sway. I refrained from further argument and turned to head home. However, as I passed by the jar of pickled vegetables, my steps faltered, and I retched a few times before a loud heave expelled everything. The thick, murky vomit splattered entirely into that foul-smelling jar of pickles. Fortunately, neither the floor nor my clothing bore any stains. The bald man's hand, poised to shut the door, froze as his eyes nearly bulged from their sockets. What the hell? Are you out of your mind? Fortunately, my door was equipped with a fingerprint lock. I hastily unlocked it and slipped inside. By the time the bald man shuffled over in his slippers, I had already slammed the door shut. Outside, a cacophony of screams and curses erupted, resembling the wails of a slaughtered pig. Shortly thereafter, his wife emerged, panic-stricken, inquiring about the commotion. And so the chorus of insults grew from one voice to two. I felt quite elated, choosing to ignore them entirely. That jar of rancid pickles was surely rendered useless now. Riding the wave of intoxication, I slept soundly, oblivious to how long the uproar outside continued before it finally ceased. The following day, as I stepped outside, I was greeted by an odor more repugnant than that of pickled vegetables. Nearly overwhelming me, I swiftly identified the source of the foul stench. To my astonishment, my door had been defiled. It was no wonder the residents of this building dared not provoke the couple across the hall. They had truly gone to great lengths. I arranged for someone to clean my door, refraining from confronting my neighbors. Engaging in a debate is futile. With those devoid of reason, one can only outwit the unscrupulous. By being even more unscrupulous, I procured a bottle of highly concentrated foul-smelling substance, non-toxic, yet overwhelmingly odorous. Seizing the opportunity when the couple departed together, I stealthily approached and thoroughly doused their door frame and doormat, not sparing the scattered dozen pairs of shoes on the floor. Each was generously sprayed. When the couple returned that evening, the key turned halfway in the lock and abruptly halted. They then pressed their faces against the door, sniffing intently, the husband at the door frame, the wife at the floor, and then the shoes. The woman could hardly suppress her gag reflex, nearly retching. I stood behind the peephole, clutching my stomach in delight. And the next moment, my door was violently pounded, resonating with a loud thud that shook the ceiling. I cracked the door open slightly, and the bald man nearly poked me in the eye with his finger, roaring in indignation. "Did you do this?" Feigning innocence, I replied, "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. The stench of excrement at my doorstep could only stem from you. Did you witness me defecating at your door? My door has been sullied as well, and I suspect it was your doing. Was it you?" "You." The bald man suddenly burst through my front door, reaching out to seize my collar, but I swiftly grasped his wrist. In terms of strength, I was no lesser than he. At that moment, the bald man's wife emerged to join the fray. She stood behind her husband, hands on her hips, launching into a tirade of insults. "Don't play dumb here, we can see through your intentions. You vile wretch, be cautious with your actions, or you might find your son born without an orifice. You dog of a mother, you despicable creature, may you meet a bitter end." It loses its charm when they get so worked up. I certainly didn't respond with such indignation when you besmirched my door. Regardless of the couple's relentless accusations, I maintained a singular refrain. I do not know, I am unclear. It was not my steadfast refusal to admit any wrongdoing was my primary strategy. Lacking evidence, the bald man, unable to grasp me while I held his wrist, withdrew with a huff, nearly grinding his teeth as he said, "Fine, you better watch yourself. In making it clear today, this isn't over." The stench of excrement lingered far too long, and for days, the air was thick with the aroma of a ruptured cesspool. Neighbors above and below speculated whether the occupants of 1601 neglected to flush after their daily visits, while the couple fumed in a group chat, demanding an end to the discussions. Upon hearing of my predicament with the neighbors, an elderly lady downstairs expressed her concern. "Xiao Zhou, that couple is particularly troublesome. They lack any moral compass. If you provoke them, You'll regret it, and seeking help from the property management or the police will be futile. As for who might be the first to seek the police when the tensions escalate, that remains uncertain. The following evening, as I was preparing a meal at home, the power suddenly went out. It was unexpected, as I had just settled the electricity bill the previous day. Almost instantly, a thought crossed my mind. I ventured into the hallway to inspect the electric meter box, and indeed, the circuit breaker on my side had been tampered with. The door across the hall was firmly shut, exuding an air of calm. I must admit, the audacity of my neighbors in causing this power outage was truly repugnant, leaving one defenseless and without evidence. Even if one were to catch them in the act and report it to the authorities, the most the police would do is offer a few words of admonition. They could hardly take any substantial action. Who among us could endure such ruffians without suffering? Yet, they had now encountered me, and it would be they who would bear the burden of distress. I chuckled softly, calmly restored the circuit breaker, and then returned to my abode. Before long, the lights flickered out once more. I repeated my previous actions, discreetly stepping outside to reset the breaker. When the power failed for the third time, I opened the door with composure. The bald man stood beneath the meter box, gripping the circuit switch tightly in his right hand. Upon noticing me, a flicker of panic crossed his face. "What's the matter? Is this circuit breaker entertaining?" The bald man held his breath, straining, yet his hand remained immovable. I smiled. "This is a super strong quick-drying adhesive. Quite the grip. Isn't it?" The bald man finally grasped the nature of my trickery. "You son of a b! You're scheming against me. You maliciously cut off my electricity, and I am within my rights to report you." After several instances like this, I cannot help but wonder if my appliances have sustained damage. Should they have, it would be only fitting for you to replace them. At the mention of compensation, the bald man was nearly beside himself with rage. What utter nonsense! What malicious intent in cutting the power! I merely intended to switch off my own circuit breaker and mistakenly pulled the wrong one. Is it possible that your eyesight is so poor? You've pulled the wrong one 3 times. I have been at home all afternoon, only just stepping out. Who are you accusing of such slander? Do you possess any evidence? TSK, TSK, TSK. He immediately resorted to insults. I nodded. I truly have no evidence. But do exercise caution next time you tamper with the circuit breaker. After all, I have an abundance of adhesive at home. This time it was the circuit breaker. But who knows what it might be next time? A door handle, perhaps? With that, I retreated indoors. I curse your mother. I curse your mother. The bald man, flustered and furious, turned crimson with rage. Yet, at that moment, all he could do was hurl insults at me. His wife emerged, berating him for being a foolish pig, and suggested that boiling water could dissolve the issue, brandishing a cup of water as if to pour it over him. Terrified, the bald man even scolded his wife. "Are you a fool? Do you wish to electrocute me? You dare yell at me? I am trying to help you, and you have the audacity to shout at me? Who are you calling a pig, huh? Have you lost your mind?" Thus, a conflict erupted between them. After an hour of commotion, the bald man's desperation grew to the point where he could no longer hold his bladder, and his hands finally found relief. His first action was to storm back to my door, cursing and kicking it. I lay in bed, engrossed in scrolling through Douyin, indifferent to his shouts. Let him yell as he pleased, for it was not I who would tire. Ultimately, he vented his frustrations for nearly half an hour before falling silent. In the dead of night, as I slept soundly, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. To my astonishment, it was a food delivery person, awaiting me to open the unit door. "Did you press the wrong button?" The young man spoke with unwavering certainty. "Building 7, room 1602. That's correct. It's yours. Hurry up and open it. My delivery time is running out." I was puzzled, wondering who would order takeout at 3 in the morning. This unexpected interruption wiped away my drowsiness. When the delivery arrived, a bald man suddenly darted out from across the street and, in a flash, snatched the takeout from my hands. "That's mine." I found myself in a state of bewilderment alongside the delivery person. The bald man showcased the mobile order, and indeed, it belonged to him. The delivery guy apologized to me, saying, "My apologies, brother." Yet, the bald man exhibited no semblance of contrition, casting me a rather unfriendly glare as he prepared to retreat into his dwelling. Annoyed, I inquired about the significance of ordering food in the middle of the night while using my address. The bald man huffed through his nostrils and replied, "I accidentally inputted it incorrectly, so what? Such a trivial matter, can't you comprehend that?" I found his excuse utterly unconvincing. Unable to restrain myself, I retorted, "If one day I were to mistakenly input the wrong address in the middle of the night, I trust you would understand." The bald man immediately turned, glaring at me. "Do you dare? My wife is pregnant. If you disturb us in the middle of the night and cause her discomfort or distress the child within her, can you bear the consequences?" The warning of a dragon-esque offspring had resurfaced. I chose to remain silent, politely gesturing for him to depart. Days later, at the ungodly hour of 3 in the morning, the doorbell rang once more. "Hello, delivery." I promptly donned my coat and communicated through the intercom. "No need to bring it up. I'll come down to retrieve it." After collecting the food, I ascended to the 15th floor via the elevator, then stealthily descended the stairs back to my abode. It was so quiet that not even the motion sensor lights in the hallway illuminated. Upon returning home, I unwrapped the delivery. Lo and behold, braised pork ribs, spicy chicken gizzards, fiery crayfish, and chilled beer. The bald man was indulging in such a feast at this late hour. Mere minutes later, a cacophony erupted at my door. Bang, bang, bang. I genuinely feared they might dismantle my door one day. "Open up. You fool, return my food." I smacked my lips through the door and remarked, just as I was feeling hungry, "This meal is truly delightful. Thank you for the hospitality." Suddenly, the volume outside escalated. "How dare you?" The bald man was infuriated. I had devoured the takeout, and refusing to show my face only fueled his frustration, prompting him to call the police. When the officers arrived, I had no choice but to open the door. As I did, I was met with the bald man's venomous glare, filled with a desire for violence, while his wife stood beside him. The couple, agitated, accused me of deliberately stealing their takeout and demanded compensation. The police, not foolish enough to be led astray, scrutinized the delivery order on the bald man's phone and inquired why the address was listed as mine. The bald man retorted defiantly, "I have the same number as him, 01 and 02. It's reasonable for an error to occur." Yet, he shamelessly took the food, fully aware it wasn't his. The officer then asked me, "Did you eat the takeout?" I shook my head. "No, I did not." The bald man shouted, "Impossible. If you didn't eat it, how do you know what was inside?" His wife chimed in, "He did it on purpose. He ate our food and must pay us." I felt exasperated. Use your brain for a moment. Isn't everything listed on the receipt inside? I'm not as foolish as some people. Who are you calling foolish? Enough, you two. Stop arguing. The officer interposed himself between the bald man and me, then addressed me. "Since you claim you didn't eat it, return the takeout promptly, and this matter will be resolved." I handed the well-packaged meal back to the bald man. The bald man was pleasantly surprised to find that the delivery had indeed remained untouched. "Then why didn't you open the door earlier?" he inquired. "You appeared so fierce, looking as if you were ready to devour someone. Who would dare?" The police, exasperated by the triviality of such matters at such an hour, admonished the bald man before departing, reminding him not to mix up the delivery address again. Ultimately, this blunder stemmed from his own mistake. The bald man complied meekly, nodding in acknowledgement. However, once the officers departed, he quickly changed his demeanor, likely preparing to unleash another torrent of invective. As I absent-mindedly picked my nose, I remarked, "I truly didn't eat the delivery. I merely opened each one and added a few things inside. But rest assured, it was only slightly unappetizing, certainly nothing lethal." With that, I flicked my thumbnail against my pinky nail. The bald man's expression shifted dramatically. "What do you mean? Be clear." I slammed the door shut with a resounding thud. Let him speculate, the fool. The couple lingered at my doorstep, still reluctant to leave. Dear, what about this delivery? What more is there to ask? If you find it so distasteful, you can eat it yourself. What a stroke of bad luck. This was all your terrible idea. In the end, the couple chose not to consume the delivery, with the woman unceremoniously discarding it at my doorstep. The following day, I kicked it back to them, sending it flying. After this encounter, peace was finally restored. No longer did anyone ring my doorbell in the dead of night, disturbing my slumber. The troublesome couple had met their match at my hands, and I couldn't help but wonder what other unrefined tactics they might employ against me. Strangely enough, I found myself somewhat looking forward to it. The outcome has indeed not disappointed me. My package was stolen by the individual across from me. I am certain of this because I installed a new electronic peephole, which captured footage of a bald man's wife lurking outside my door, subsequently absconding with a box of pomelos that I had failed to retrieve. It weighed 5 kilograms, with a total value of less than 30 yuan. Small-mindedness, indeed. A few days later, a large box appeared at my doorstep, its exterior proclaiming it contained 10 kilograms of premium 5J cherries. The woman from across the way emerged to dispose of her trash, drew near to inspect the box with evident delight, and then hurried back inside to summon her bald accomplice for assistance. He, too, wore a foolish grin as he effortlessly carried it home. I watched the unfolding scene on my phone's surveillance, sharing in their amusement. I can only imagine the couple's surprise as they eagerly opened the box, only to discover an abundance of plump, white maggots instead of the promised cherries. Originally, I had contemplated arranging for a box of cockroaches, but I deemed it too risky, fearing they might escape into neighboring homes and affect the innocent. Thus, I abandoned that idea. This time, the bald man and his wife were beside themselves with rage. Unable to locate me in my absence, they resorted to venting their frustrations in a group chat. Their exchanges were a mix of male and female vitriol, rife with vulgarity. Yet, they conspicuously avoided mentioning the theft of my package. The others in the chat, unable to bear the spectacle any longer, urged him to exercise some restraint. In response, he launched a series of indiscriminate attacks, threatening that anyone who dared to defend me would find themselves at their doorstep, causing a commotion. He tagged me, declaring that he would do nothing else that day but wait for my appearance, promising that if I dared to show up, he would ensure I received a taste of his wrath. Around 8 o'clock in the evening, as I returned home, I found the bald man sitting at my doorstep with a chair, a baseball bat in his hand. Upon seeing me, he sprang to his feet. Just a moment ago, he had appeared menacing, like a ferocious dog, but in an instant, he was reduced to a submissive figure, the bat awkwardly suspended in the air. The police officer behind me inquired, "Is this the one?" I nodded in affirmation. "You are now suspected of stealing someone else's property, with the value exceeding 1,000 yuan. Please accompany us to the station for further questioning." The bald man, who had been seething with rage and intended to confront me, suddenly panicked upon realizing he was now the suspect. "No, officer. When did I steal anything? I haven't done anything." I retrieved my phone and showed him the surveillance screenshots. "The video clearly captures your actions. Do you dare deny it?" Upon seeing the footage on my phone, the bald man was momentarily stunned, but then erupted in a fit of anger. "To hell with you. There are no cherries in that box." "Officer, it's filled with maggots." "Maggots? Am I out of my mind to buy a box of maggots? This is clearly the cherries I ordered online, and I still have the purchase record." Although the bald man had indeed committed theft, I had undeniably sullied his reputation. In a fit of rage, he lunged toward me, but the officer swiftly restrained him. Without hesitation, the police placed handcuffs on him. "Come on, cooperate with us and return for the investigation." The bald man found himself at a loss for words. His wife, witnessing him being taken away, was on the verge of throwing a tantrum, insisting that it was merely a box of maggots, which the bald man had carelessly discarded in the community dumpster. However, when the police followed them to inspect, they found no such large box in the trash, let alone anything as repulsive as a box of maggots. The couple could hardly fathom that while they disposed of the maggots, I was promptly erasing all evidence. My phone contained purchase records, along with undeniable proof of the bald man retrieving my package, leaving him with no way to exonerate himself, regardless of his protests. Consequently, the outcome was either for us to privately negotiate compensation for my losses or for him to face detention for 5 to 10 working days due to malicious harm. Naturally, the bald man had no choice but to endure the pain of compensation. On the day I received the 1,000 yuan compensation, I purchased a box of cherries and placed them at my doorstep, specifically notifying the owners group that anyone wishing to partake could freely come to my home for some, at no cost. Throughout that day, I could hear the ruckus from across the hall, where the couple seemed to be either breaking things or bickering incessantly. Just as I had business to attend to away from home, a few days of tranquility ensued. Little did I expect, upon my return, that the couple across would orchestrate a rather unexpected surprise. To my dismay, I found myself unable to locate my own door. It was late at night when I returned. Exiting the elevator, I was preoccupied with my phone, and after taking just a couple of steps, I was met with a dull thud, feeling as though I had collided with a wall. Raising my gaze, I was astonished to find an entire wall of cabinetry, blocking the narrow passageway that was less than 2 meters wide. I reached out to push it, but the cabinet did not budge an inch. My immediate reaction was to suspect that the couple had deliberately moved their furniture into the hallway. Upon further contemplation, it is inconceivable that such a sizable cabinet could have been maneuvered through the door. Thus, the only plausible explanation is that it was constructed directly in the hallway. Remarkable. This ploy truly astounds me. In their determination to thwart me, this couple is evidently going to great lengths. They must believe that my inability to enter my home would incite a fit of frustration, prompting me to demand the immediate dismantling of the cabinet. Alternatively, they may anticipate that I would resort to forcibly removing it myself, thereby giving them grounds to seek compensation from me, regardless of the outcome. Their satisfaction seems to hinge on my discomfort. In the dead of night, I was reluctant to engage in a quarrel with them. After all, the cabinet could not be moved in the immediate term. I decisively sought refuge in a nearby hotel for the night. The following day, I attempted to confront the bald man, but his residence was vacant. Upon approaching the property management, they recoiled at the mention of the Tyrant from Unit 1601 in Building 7, repeatedly deflecting responsibility and advising me to consider involving the authorities. My previous call to the police was aimed at extracting some accountability from the bald man, but this time, the prospect seemed futile. Since he wishes to play games, I resolved to engage him to the fullest extent. I instructed the property management to contact him, and I would handle the negotiations. He did not deliberately ignore the call, but with a brazen demeanor, he declared that he had accompanied his wife to her family's home with no set date for his return, and that the matter of the cabinet would have to wait until he was back. I declared that I must resolve this matter immediately, prompting the bald man on the other end of the line to erupt with agitation, exclaiming, "This is a cabinet I paid for and intend to use myself. If you dare to dismantle it, you must first compensate me with 10,000 yuan. Such a shabby cabinet daring to demand that sum revealed his ulterior motives. Previously, I had managed to swindle him out of 1,000 yuan, and I imagined he must have been restless that night. I offered a faint smile, assuring him, "Rest assured, I will not dismantle your cabinet." "What? You won't dismantle it?" The bald man was taken aback, his tone laced with disbelief. "I won't dismantle it, as you explicitly forbade me from doing so," I replied. In any case, I warn you, any damage will not be tolerated. If your actions cause even the slightest harm to my cabinet, you must compensate me." Coincidentally, I had a friend who owned a renovation company, and I borrowed 2 seasoned craftsmen from him. They meticulously disassembled the cabinet doors and panels, unscrewing the wall screws one by one, and then reassembled everything with precision. The only difference was that this time, I relocated the cabinet to the entrance across the hall. With the roadblock finally resolved, I discovered that the peephole on the door had been smashed. The bald man and his wife returned the following day. Upon seeing the wall obstructing their front door, the couple stood at the elevator for several minutes in utter shock. This time, he had no grounds to confront me. If he claimed ownership of the cabinet, I had merely moved it to his premises. If he insisted it must remain intact, I had restored it to its original state, with not a single flaw. The bald man could never have anticipated that all his efforts would ultimately lead him to dig his own grave. However, despite his frustration, he had no choice but to retreat, seeking assistance to dismantle that cabinet. TSK, TSK, TSK. This couple, who have always been unable to contain their grievances, suffered a setback this time, and astonishingly remained quiet for an entire week, refraining from troubling me again. Yet, I would not be deceived into believing that they could genuinely swallow their anger. Initially, their disdain for me was palpable. Now, they undoubtedly harbored an intense desire to see me harmed. One evening, a friend invited me for drinks, and upon my return, the streets were deserted. There was an abandoned dirt path near the community, and unable to hold it any longer, I turned in to relieve myself. Just as I was pulling up my trousers, a sudden sharp pain struck my back. Turning around, I was confronted by two men, one stout and the other slender, both wearing masks and hats. Although the light was dim, I recognized one of them immediately, the squat, stocky figure with menacing triangular eyes, none other than the bald man himself. Ah! So, rather than being a mere bully, he had decided to take a more direct approach. No wonder he had been silent all these days. He had been lurking, waiting for the opportune moment, choosing to strike under the cover of darkness in desolate areas devoid of surveillance. I rubbed my shoulder, feigning ignorance of his identity. Listen, my friend, I have nothing of value on me, and we are living in a society governed by law. You should think twice before resorting to violence. The lean man beside the bald one, wielding an iron rod, paid no heed to my words. Sharing a glance with the bald man, he swung the rod towards me. Given the circumstances, further discourse would be an exercise in rudeness. Without a hint of hesitation, I delivered a swift kick to his solar plexus. My companion had trained for this. Surely, this scrawny fool would not withstand such a blow. He staggered a few steps before collapsing to the ground, unable to rise for quite some time. Meanwhile, the bald man swung his iron rod toward me. Alas, in my eyes, his movements appeared exceedingly sluggish. It was merely the element of surprise that had allowed them to succeed once. I effortlessly seized the rod from him. Then I struck mercilessly at his shins. The bald man cried out in agony, his wails echoing painfully. Though he appeared robust and brawny, I was astonished at how easily he succumbed. After just a dozen blows, he was rolling on the ground, clutching his leg. As I prepared to deliver another decisive strike, he shouted, "Are you trying to kill me? I must remind you that we live in a society governed by law. Think this through. Wasn't that my line just moments ago?" I couldn't help but laugh heartily. Having learned my lesson, I discarded the stick. Yet, upon returning, regret washed over me. I lamented that I had been too lenient with the bald man, as such a rare opportunity to confront him without fear of his reporting me to the authorities had slipped away. The following day, upon awakening, I found the homeowners group buzzing with activity, all engrossed in discussions about the bald man. It turned out that I had broken his leg, and in the dead of night, he had summoned an ambulance to take him to the hospital, causing quite a commotion. With a fractured leg, he was bound to be hospitalized. During his stay, the neighbors in our building seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. No longer did they worry about encountering that pair of lunatics while walking their dogs, nor did they fear being berated for merely checking their phones in the elevator. There were even whispers of gratitude, hoping that this family would soon vacate the premises. A week later, the bald man returned home from the hospital, supported by his wife, who was followed closely by a lanky individual with a head full of yellow hair. The physique of this newcomer bore an uncanny resemblance to the wiry figure that had ambushed me that fateful night. Coincidentally, it was a Saturday, and I was deliberating whether to order takeout or prepare a meal when a sudden loud banging at my door startled me. Venturing out, I was met with the sight of the bald man's wife smashing my fingerprint lock with a hammer. Perplexed by her antics, I observed her swaying like a street tough, her eyes brimming with defiance. "Got a problem?" I offered a faint smile. "No problem at all. After all, if you break it, you can pay for it." "Me pay? You must be dreaming." We haven't settled the score for my husband's broken leg yet. Now, that is quite the unfounded accusation. How on earth is your husband's injury my responsibility? Surely, just because I have a grudge against him, it cannot be that he will suffer from hunger. Be unable to relieve himself, or be childless, all due to my actions? The wife of the bald man turned pale, as if I had struck a nerve. What the hell are you talking about? She suddenly erupted, charging at me like a madwoman, intent on scratching my face. As her claws descended toward me, I swiftly grasped her arm. Being mindful of her condition as a pregnant woman, I did not exert force, but gently pushed her away. To my surprise, she stumbled back as if struck by a vehicle, landing several meters away on the ground. Then she began to wail at the top of her lungs. He hit me. A grown man is attacking a pregnant woman. I raised an eyebrow. Almost immediately, the lean monkey dashed out from across the street. Sister, are you okay? My stomach hurts so much. The bald man's wife clutched her abdomen, her face contorted in agony. I could hardly bear to watch. Enough of the theatrics. Your acting is woefully inadequate, sister. At some point, the bald man had appeared at his doorstep, leaning on a crutch and capturing the scene with his phone. The lean monkey glared at me. You scoundrel. You constantly create trouble for my sister and brother-in-law. What have they done to offend you? You bully two honest people. Can you live with yourself? I warn you, if anything happens to my sister or her child, I will make you pay with your life. What did I just hear? Honest people? If this couple qualifies as honest, then there are few villains left in the world. I scanned the three of them. Very well, I shall await your move. That evening, the community group chat exploded. The bald man released an edited video in which I was seen pushing his wife, who then sat on the ground, clutching her abdomen and weeping. The man with the yellow hair shouted, I tell you, if anything happens to my sister or her unborn child, I will make you pay with your life. The video concluded with his wife lying on a hospital bed, accompanied by a medical diagnosis indicating symptoms of a threatened miscarriage. The accusation of assaulting a pregnant woman resulting in miscarriage is indeed grave. It turns out that the couple conspired with a thin monkey to orchestrate this dramatic scene. I am currently in great distress. I cannot fathom how, over a trivial neighborhood dispute, some individuals can be so malicious as to repeatedly harass us, intimidate, extort, and now even physically assault me to the point of a fracture, while also endangering my 3-month pregnant wife to the brink of miscarriage. My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and after much anticipation, we are finally expecting a child. Yet now, we are left uncertain about the future of our baby. What have we done wrong? Is there no sense of justice left? Is there no law to uphold? The bald man's narrative appeared strikingly heartfelt, each word accusing me of being an irredeemable criminal. Neighbors in the group gradually began to voice their opinions, most of which were skeptical. The elderly lady from downstairs was the first to defend me. To be honest, I do not believe Xiaozhou is that kind of person. How could he possibly harm your wife? This young man is not capable of such actions. A previously unremarkable account chimed in, indeed. When it comes to identifying the true villain in this building, it goes without saying, everyone is well aware. I have watched the video several times and still cannot discern any wrongdoing on the part of 1602. The bald man became incensed. Are you all blind? Can't you see the medical certificate? Did you miss the words threatened miscarriage? This is certainly not a forgery on my part. A female homeowner promptly replied, a threatened miscarriage is not the same as a miscarriage. I experienced it during my pregnancy as well. Besides trauma, it could also be due to the quality of the embryo or maternal malnutrition. Unable to counter the crowd, the bald man tagged me. No amount of discussion will change anything. I have gathered all the evidence and will be reporting this to the authorities. Prepare for the law to take its course. I responded, perhaps you should reconsider calling the police? There's no need to escalate matters. The bald man mistook my suggestion for fear. It's too late for regrets. Did you not consider the consequences when you harmed my wife? If you want me to refrain from reporting you, then you must compensate us. Here we go again. Back to the subject of compensation. I played along with his line of thought, and how much do you expect me to pay? Medical expenses, nutritional support. Emotional distress, at least 100,000. If anything were to go awry with my wife's pregnancy, you would owe us 500,000. If you refuse to pay, I will take legal action and ensure your downfall. I smiled, finally revealing my well-prepared trump card. Is it truly worth all this turmoil over another man's child? The bald man immediately sent a voice message in response. How dare you utter such nonsense? If you continue to speak so recklessly, I shall tear your mouth apart. The tone was already teetering on the edge of fury. It seems one does not shed tears until faced with the grave. Unfazed, I methodically shared the meticulously prepared evidence from my phone within the group chat. The first image depicted his wife opening the door for a tall man, with the timestamp indicating 11:50 p.m. on August 22nd. The second image captured the man emerging from the doorway, timestamped at 7:20 a.m. on August 23rd. The third image showcased his wife embracing the same man at a restaurant. The fourth piece was a video of her standing in a corner, seemingly infuriated, declaring that only after the child was born could a paternity test be conducted. Each piece of evidence was more damning than the last. I added, whether I pushed your wife or not, you know it, I know it, and your wife knows it. Though you may be despicable as a man of goodwill, I cannot bear to see you defend her while she betrays you and allows another to raise your child. The bald man fell silent. The others in the group were also muted, enveloped in an oppressive stillness. At that moment, the bald man was likely on the brink of collapse. Who would have imagined that I would uncover his wife's infidelity? On the third night following the bald man's hospitalization, a notification from the surveillance software on my phone suddenly alerted me to movement. I casually clicked to view it, revealing the tall man exiting the elevator and striding directly across the hall. The door was swiftly opened, and it appeared his wife had anticipated his arrival, greeting him with a smile as she pulled him inside without a hint of surprise. It wasn't until the following morning that the man emerged from across the way. Such an explosive revelation was, of course, too enticing to ignore. I expended some funds to engage an individual who trailed the bald man's wife for several days. Fortune favored the bold, and eventually, compromising photographs and a video of their clandestine rendezvous were captured. The bald man withdrew from the group chat, as did his wife. Though neither uttered a word, their actions spoke volumes. I adhered to my routine, departing early and returning late, and for a fortnight, I did not encounter the couple. Nor did the bald man attempt to harass me further. Indeed, having such a significant domestic scandal unveiled publicly would devastate any man, leaving him with little energy for further conflict. My final sighting of the couple occurred one evening approximately 2 weeks later. Upon returning from a nocturnal run, I noticed the door to the residence opposite mine was wide open. I overheard the bald man bellowing, "Leave at once. I purchased this residence. You have no claim to it whatsoever." Subsequently, a suitcase was hurled out. The bald man's wife, sobbing uncontrollably, emerged, and upon noticing me at the elevator entrance, her eyes conveyed sheer resentment. I courteously made way for her, gesturing for her to enter the elevator. She glared at me, retrieved her suitcase, and departed with palpable animosity. The bald man, upon exiting to close the door, also noticed me, his expression a fascinating blend of awkwardness and fury, certainly not a pleasant countenance. He slammed the door shut with considerable force. Upon my return the following evening, I learned from the residence group chat that the occupants of apartment 1601 had vacated, and the property was already listed for sale at the management office. I certainly did not anticipate that the bald man would move away, nor did I expect it to happen so swiftly. A month later, a couple of educators took residence across the street. On their very first day, they presented me with a token of introduction, softly expressing their hopes for a cordial relationship in the future, which left me feeling rather bashful. From time to time, I find myself reminiscing about the bald man. Such an extraordinary neighbor is unlikely to be encountered again in this lifetime.